Welcome to this video. This is a continuation of the series of the videos that we have been having, all of them on the CI/CD pipeline. In the last video, we left where we added our last tool, which was SonarQube. We started, of course, with the planning stage. In the planning stage, of course, we saw exactly what we do. Then we went to the next stage where we integrated Git, which now become our tool. Because of course, during the planning stage, we decided exactly the kind of the pipeline that we were going to build. Then here, of course, developers are working on the code. As developers are working on the code, they are committing the code to a repository, which is a repository that holds the quality code. And then this code need, of course, to come here and be cloned by Jenkins. We saw that for Jenkins to be able to do that, this is Jenkins, it need an application, or it need an extension or a plugin of Git. So we integrated Git with Jenkins so that we can enhance the automatic, or we can enhance what we call automated way of cloning the code from this quality GitHub repository. After that, we clone the code. We need to build the code. We saw exactly the entire process of building the code, and those videos are all going to be at the bottom of this video so that you can refer to them. And here we have the Maven. And what we did is to download the Maven. We did not use a plugin, but what we did was to go to the Jenkins terminal. We downloaded the Maven, and then we came and we were able to connect Jenkins with Maven. To do that, we used scripting, where we defined a few variables. We also defined the path where Maven dependencies, which we were going to use to manage the project, were going to be downloaded from. And we saw that there is a very important file called the POM.xml. And this POM.xml is what we call the Maven configuration file. So in this case, of course, it contains all the dependencies. It also contains exactly the steps that are going to be followed when we are building the project. After that, Maven was able to help us. We saw also that Maven work with Java JDK. JDK is very important because it comes with something we call the Java compiler. This compiler, we say, it is very important because it helps with the compilation of the Java code. In the compilation, we saw the conversion of the source code into binary code. And from there, we came and we integrated Jenkins again with another fourth tool, which is what we call the SonarQube. The SonarQube in this case was supposed to carry out the static analysis of the code. We saw exactly how that whole process went. We also saw that for us to be able to do this, we must pass the artifact that is built by Maven, and we must pass it to the SonarQube. And if you remember carefully, we use what we call the Sonar:: Sonar, and that was able to pass this artifact to the SonarQube, because SonarQube is a machine. So after that, the SonarQube was able to carry the static analysis. We saw it gave us a grade through what we call the quality gates. We saw things like reliability. We saw duplication. We saw the technical depth, or the technical depth. We also saw maintainability, maintenance. So that's exactly what we saw yesterday. Now today, we are going to add another tool, and this tool in this case is Docker. We have to remember, you're only going to be using Docker if you are going to be managing images, building images, and running containers. Docker, as we know, and I do have some videos on Docker, is an improvised hypervisor, but is specifically used to build images and run containers. So we are going to use this because we are going to be building images, and all those images are going then to be deployed into the pre-production, which we are going to see later on. And in the pre-production, there are other things that that image application is going to go through. But for now, the aim here is to integrate our pipeline with Docker. So I'm going to erase this. And I'll draw a straight one. So in this case, we are talking about, we started with planning stage. Don't forget about that, where we sat down, we as DevOps engineers, and now we were able, of course, to determine the kind of pipeline we have. You have to remember that DevOps stands for dev and operation. So here we have the dev environment, DV. And this dev environment, this is where the code is being written. This is where we are preparing the code. Immediately the code is ready, it moves to a quality repository, can be on GitHub, Bitbucket, can be anywhere. It's up to you the kind of version control system that your company uses. Now here we have the GitHub. So you have to remember that GitHub is a version control system, or is an online storage for repositories. Now the question is, what kind of repository are going to be stored inside the GitHub? And the answer is, we are going to be storing the Git repositories. From there, we need to clone this so that we can bring it to our CI/CD pipeline. And for us to be able to do the cloning of a repository that is in GitHub, we need Git. But Git alone is not going to work. It needs to be integrated into our pipeline, and the only way to do that is to integrate it with Jenkins. You have to always remember that Jenkins is at the middle here. It has all the plugins you need. It is able to manage those plugins as a server. It can download those plugins. And the only thing you need to know is how to integrate so that you can have a pipeline. You have to remember that a pipeline is nothing, but is a combination of tools that are working together to help us to automate the entire process of SDLC. That is the entire process of building a software. So now you clone the code with Git, but you need to integrate Git with Jenkins, and we saw exactly how to do that. After cloning the code is going to come to the Jenkins home directory, and from there, we need to build the code. Jenkins alone is not going to build the code. What we did is to integrate it with a build automation tool specifically for the Java code. And that's exactly what we did, and that is Maven. We have to remember that Maven usually works with JDK. And anytime you download Maven, it should tell you exactly the JDK it is compatible with. And we saw that. For instance, when we downloaded them, we installed Maven yesterday in our Jenkins, through our Jenkins terminal, we saw that it was compatible with JDK 17. Why does it need JDK? We saw those notes yesterday again, where we say that, hey, we need JDK because JDK has a compiler called Java, and that compiler is the one that is going to be compiling the Java code. From there, Maven was good. It was able to give us what we call an artifact, and that artifact now, we were able to pass it. Again, we integrated Jenkins with another tool, which is SonarCube in this case, and we took this artifact that is built by Maven, and we were able to pass it to SonarCube using sonar:\sonar. And that was how the SonarCube was able to carry out the entire process of static analysis of the code. So up to this stage, we have how many tools? We have Git. JDK is part of it. It needs to be part of your Jenkins server. It needs to be installed. We have Jenkins, we have Maven, and we have SonarCube. Now, today, because our production, there are two types of production here, pre-production and live production. Pre-production and live production is just where we are running this software so that customer can be able to access the software. In this case, we need to run it as containers, which means that if we are going to be running in our production, if we are running containers, it means that when we are building, when we are in the process of building, we need to build image applications. So to be able to build images and run containers, we need, of course, a platform that is going to support this. The most famous one is Docker. So Docker become the fifth tool that we are going to integrate into our pipeline. So the question is, how do we integrate this? There are two ways you can do this. You can either go to the Jenkins terminal and you can just install Docker, perfectly fine. But again, you have to be careful here. And when you're running the Docker when you're running Jenkins as a container, there are a few things you need to observe so that you don't have the issue when it comes to building. For now, we're just going to go back. First of all, make sure that we have Docker installed. We have Maven installed. I'm not going to go through SonarQube because I went through that in the previous videos. If you don't know how to set up and integrate SonarQube with Jenkins, you can always go back to the previous video. So I'm going to clear this. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my Visual Studio Code. In the Visual Studio Code, there are a few things I want you to note here before I go to the Visual Studio Code. This is my Jenkins console. Remember, this Jenkins is running as a container. We saw this yesterday. For me to be able to get the password, it's called the initial password, admin password. I need, of course, to go into the logs and get it. But if I was running just a simple WAR file Jenkins, it was just a simple case of coming here. Of course, I need to SSH into this server that Jenkins is installed in. To do that, we saw exactly how you can do this straight up from AWS. We saw that you must have your PEM key here because the PEM key is the key that help you to get inside your server. My PEM key is already here. I have two PEM keys, but at the moment I'm using the first one. So now what I need to do is to go back to my AWS account. If you don't have AWS account, again, I have video on how to do that. You go to EC2. This is the EC2 console. There are so many consoles on AWS. So this one is specifically for EC2 and the resources that are related to EC2. Now, when you come here, what you need to do is to click on the square box, and I want you to specifically come to connect. In the connect section, you don't need to worry about this. By the way, you just need to do Chmod once. As far as you did it, you are good to go. But I still can do it. I'll copy this. I'll come back here, paste it. But first of all, I need to check whether this is whether these files or this PEM key is part of my folder. I'm sure it is. Now I can just paste that, enter. I don't get any error. I'm good to go. From there, I need to come and copy SSH. If you look at this command, we have SSH, we have -i. -i is just saying that, hey, the PEM key is a file. And this file, the name of the file is exactly this. Notice the name of the file is inside double quotation mark because it's not defined. We're going to copy that. The system does not define it. Then we enter. Yes. Clear, we are in. Now we need to become the root. That's all we need to do. Before you can proceed, I always say, hey, just do the patch management. Usually, as a DevOps engineer, you need, of course, to always automate these things. You can do this with Ansible or you can use scripts, but doing with Ansible is much easier. If you don't know how to do that, I do have videos on how, of course, to automate the whole process of patch management using Ansible. Now, here what we are going to do is, first of all, let's do the manual patch management. To do the patch management manual, we're just going to carry out two commands. That is yum install this. So we're going to update, and updating, as we say, is to make sure that all the packages that are required are available. Then we do the next one. Instead of update, we're going to do upgrade. -y, yes, we're going to confirm things if possible. And nothing to do, so we're good to go. So we clear this. Now, what do we do next? First, we have to know that this Jenkins is running as a container. And if I want to go and see how many containers I have that are running in my system, a simple case of running the Docker PS command. If I want to see the containers that are active and the ones that have exited, is a simple case of running Docker PS-A. But in this case, I only have one container, and this container is a Jenkins container. So Jenkins is running as a container, and we saw that there are so many advantages of doing this. Now, how do I get the admin password? If I was doing the warfile Jenkins, it will be a simple case of cat. And then I need to go back to the Jenkins console, cat. If I was doing a warfile Jenkins, I come here, copy this, then I come here and I say, I paste, nothing. Of course, nothing, because this is a container, it's not a warfile. So we clear this. And now, again, let's do Docker PS. And I'm just doing Docker PS here to just see the container ID, because I'm going to need the container ID. Now, how do I get the admin initial password? I'm going to say Docker log, because I need the logs of the container -f. This is just a flag. It's introducing the container ID. And then I need to copy this container ID, put it here, and enter. And as you can see, we have some logs here. And you can see that one, update the servers is successful. So this is how you know things, because this is where the logs are stored. So now this is my admin password. You just copy this. You go back to the Jenkins console. You just type continue. You just install the suggested. Don't worry about selecting the pipeline. It's going to take so much time for you to get all the plugins that you need. As you can see now, Jenkins server itself is downloading plugins. As you can see, anything that is happening on the Jenkins terminal or the Jenkins console is also being reflected inside the Jenkins terminal, and specifically in the log section. You can see. So this is how you're able to know how many plugins have been able to be successfully installed. And maybe in case there is any plugin that is giving you some trouble, you can always come here and see the logs. But so far, so good. We are done. Installation is done. 82 plugins in 36 seconds have been installed. So we just have to do Control-Z and we'll come out of this window. Now we go back to the Jenkins console. Again, here we are putting password, put something simple. It's not a bank password. I'm just putting one name, Josh throughout. And then, of course, email you can put of your choice, doesn't matter. Whichever email you want to put, just have to put the email of your choice. Don't forget, this is your URL. If I was to copy this URL, I'm gonna save and finish. Remember, I copied the URL. So if I come here and I paste it, it's going to take me the same location as I am. So this is the URL of Jenkins. Now here we are. This is the Jenkins home. This is the Jenkins application home. This is how the home looks like. Or this, how the home. So we have the dashboard here. We have manage Jenkins. So as we said, let's go back to there. We're going to go back here. Going to come back here, and we want to know whether Docker is installed. Sure, it's installed. Otherwise, if you run the binary, it won't show anything. Let's see whether Maven is installed. Nothing. So we need to install Maven. Yum install. This is a command. We saw it yesterday, and then you just enter. All right, still downloading. Clear this. We need to check whether JDK is available. Java. This is the command. And of course, you're going to see that we do have the Java. If I come here and I look Maven version. All right, I was too fast. It's giving me problem. I can do with this. So you can see that this is the MVN. Of course, the Java that is compatible with it is JDK 17. And we saw that we do have the Java, and the runtime for our Java is 17.0.8. So they are matching each other. So now from here, we continue where we stopped. So yesterday, we went all the way to the process of building the artifact. Now today, we're going to continue from that artifact. Of course, we were able to test the artifact, and then we are going to continue to Docker, being able to log into Docker and being able to push that image application that we are going to build all the way to the pre-production stage of our pipeline. So now what do we do to be able to do that? What are we going to do? There are a few things we can do. I did show you exactly how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move very fast today. I'm not going to be explaining a lot because I have already done the initial part of cloning, building, and scanning of the artifact. The only portion I want us to concentrate more now is building the image. But I cannot be able to build the image unless I'm able to set up my pipeline script. So I'm going to move very fast to do that. First, what I need to do is to go all the way to manage Jenkins. And in managing Jenkins, I'm going to come straight up to the plugins. And in the plugin sections, I need to make sure that everything I need is installed. But because I have already checked them from the terminal, I'm very sure I have all the tools I need. If there is any I need, let's say I needed Terraform, I can just come here and install. Let's say I needed Ansible plugin, I can just come here and install. So that is how easy it is to install the plugins on Jenkins. But I have a warning for you. Do not just enjoy the process of downloading the plugins. You have to remember that these plugins always take a space or consume some of the resources of Jenkins. So if you are doing it for fun, you are soon going to make your Jenkins ineffective. I mean, it's not going to be as effective as it should. I mean, so you have to only download or only install the plugins that you need to use at the moment. Otherwise, if you are just having fun, you are going to soon affect your Jenkins ability to efficiently do the job. All right, so we're going back to dashboard, manage Jenkins. We're going to go to tools. Why do I need to go to tools? Because I need to see the tools I have. Well, a lot. JDK is here. We have Git. We have Gradle. Gradle is another build automation, but it's specifically for other form of code like Python and all that. Anti is a mix of Gradle and Maven. We have Maven here. So now, if we are going to be able to build this, we are going to do just like yesterday, where we were able to define the margin and all that. But I wouldn't explain much as I did yesterday. So I'm just going to go straight forward, put the information. You can follow the yesterday's video, and then of course, which is going to be at the bottom. And the name of the video, of course, is none other than how, of course, to build your pipeline. This is just a continuation, and in this stage we are continuing to Docker. But again, as I said, we cannot get to the Docker stage unless we start our pipeline again. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining that. I'll just go in and put all the information until we get to the Docker stage. So you can watch what I'm going to do. The first thing is to make sure Git is here. So Git is here. So I'm going to start by building a pipeline very quick. I'm going to call it continuation. And this one, we are moving to Docker. We are adding Docker today. And when adding Docker, we need to use a pipeline. We need to say, okay. And now we have some description. We can put something fun. We can say, we are still in the process of completing the CI the pipeline. Today, the focus is on adding Docker, log into Docker. It's not just log into Docker, we are adding Docker. We are building the image. Not only are we building the image, we are tagging the image. Then, of course, we are logging to Docker, and then pushing the image to the staging area of, let's not forget this, of production. So that is the description. So now in this case, we move next. Don't worry about the spelling or the grammar, that can always be fixed. There are two things here we can build periodically, and now we need to come up with a schedule, and usually like to give a normal schedule that is not too hectic. I'll say after 30 minutes. All you need is *** space, and then you click outside and it will give you like the timeline. For instance, it's going to tell you that it would have ran 5:28:03 p.m. coordinated universal time, and then it's going to run next 5:58. Why? Because the difference of 30 minutes. You can always reduce or increase your time. It's up to you. No, we can also do Power SCM. Another one, again, if there is anything to do with the source code management, and then you happen to have any, for instance, you can have you know, a merge or into the quality repository that contain the quality code. Of course, that process is going to build again, but let's give it a schedule. So H, 15, 1 star, 2nd star, 3 star, 4th star, and then we are good to go. So it's gonna give you exactly the schedule. Now, here we saw that we are dealing with a scripted pipeline, which means we're starting with Node. And of course, when you enter, the curly brackets start to add themselves. We saw that we need to have a stage, and that stage is none other but Git cloning. This is what we saw yesterday. And of course, nobody has defined this, so you have to put it under the double quotation. Then, of course, now here we need to put a curly bracket. It didn't create another one, so you need to do it again. Yes, because it has, anytime you open a curly bracket, you have to close. Now, where do I get the code? I mean, where do I get exactly the code that is going to help me to clone the code that is in the quality repository that is in GitHub? Of course, you can memorize this, but you don't need to memorize. All you need is to know exactly how to generate it. This is why sometimes we like to call this declarative pipeline, but again, this is scripted because it starts with the word node. If it was declarative, it should have started with the word pipeline. Now, this is the URL. We already saw that. So I'm going to just take it. If you don't have it, I'm going to put this URL in the video. You can just click on it, fork it, and make it yours. And then you can just go to GitHub or Bitbucket, wherever you are in your own version control system. And then, of course, you know that you need to take the URL for that Git repository. And I'm going to show you how you can connect the Jenkins with that. So I'm going to take this HTTPS. I'll come here and I'll go to I'm going to go to the pipeline syntax. And here is where you need to pay attention. We did this yesterday. Then you look for git. You put your URL there. And from there, you have to make sure the branch is correct. Credential we saw yesterday, but now they have disappeared. So I need to create new ones. You just need to click on Jenkins. You have to use, of course, username with password, as we saw yesterday. Username, you have to use the username for your version control system. In my case, I'm just going to come here because I can remember, and I'm going to say settings. Then I'm going to say autofill the password. Then I'll come to Google Password Manager, and then I'll just come here and search for what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is GitHub. Not GitHub, but Git. Here it is. So I click on it. It's going to ask me for my fingers, which is fine. This is the username. So you come here to the pipeline, you put the username, cool. Then we come back here and we go to have the password. I'm not going to let you see, but I'll just copy it as it is, even though it's invisible to you, it's not invisible to Jenkins. So now we need an ID. You don't need to bother yourself too much. You just need to come to my pipeline, and I gave you a nice ID, GitHub credentials. You come here, you put it here. When it comes to description, you can do anything. You can even say Git credentials. And then you add it. Of course, when you add it, it doesn't add automatically. You still have to come to the credentials here, and then you have to select it. And when you do that, all you need is to generate. And you need to copy this as it is. Don't leave even a dot. Then you need to come here. If you don't know where to paste, return back to the opening curly bracket and enter and paste. And that's the end of it. So now this is our first stage, and this is the first integration of Jenkins with Git. So we just apply, save, and build. Here it's done. So as you can see, it's very fast. That process has been automated. Now it has been cloned and everything is good to go. Then after that, we move to Maven. To do the Maven, it's very simple. You just have to come back here. You have to go to dashboard. Then you need to go to manage Jenkins. We need to go to tools. Remember how we did this? In the tools section, we need to go to Maven. We need to add Maven, but we first of all need to give it a name. To make sure you don't have to struggle, you need to come back to the pipeline I gave you. Make sure that you have the correct name. We define this. So you can use any name, it's up to you, but make sure that you fix that code to display the correct name. And doesn't matter whether the version is this, I mean, it's just a name. So now we have to install automatically. So we apply this and we save. And that's done. Now from here, all we need was to come and copy this. I'm not gonna explain because I did yesterday. So today I'm just passing by because the aim is to go to Docker where I'm going to explain most of the stuff, because anything to do with SonarQube Maven, you can find it in the previous videos. Now, some people always ask me, like, where do I start the next stage? It's nothing. You just need to come to the curly bracket number 4. Remember, You have no business with this curly bracket and you have no business with this curly bracket. Everything is inside the block. So you enter and then you just paste. And I have to make sure that this curly bracket is active, because if it's not opening and closing, something is wrong. Now from there, what do? We come back to the pipeline again. And I want us to come here and copy this as it is. Then we come back here. I'm not gonna again explain this, is something we did yesterday. So we just gonna paste that, and you have to make sure that you're in there as well, in a good position. Then we saw that you can use the sh. Sh, of course, is how we run bash or shell command on the pipeline. And the command I want to check is nproc, which is going to help me to check the number of CPU in the server where Jenkins is installed. So now all you need to do is apply and save. And we are going to build. And to be able to build, as you can see, this is the console output. These are all the plugins that are being downloaded. And these plugins are being used. There are many. I don't know if you have to do this manually when you ever finish. There are so many. You need to download all those. But now they are being downloaded from the Maven Central repository. And this is happening because we did put all the dependencies that we need in the Maven configuration file or project configuration file, which is none other but the POM and POM.xml, which is project object model, which is the one that is responsible for controlling the entire build automation process. As you can see, nproc was able to run, and it gave me that, hey, we have 2 CPU here, which is correct. So we are done with the whole process of Maven now. Next, we were supposed to go to SonarQube, but I don't have SonarQube, so that we are going to skip that step. If you want to know how to integrate the whole CI/CD pipeline with SonarQube, you can go to my previous video. For now, we are just going to move on to Docker. In the Docker section, we're going to create a new section where, of course, this is the title. We come back here, we come back to dashboard, we come back to our pipeline. Then, of course, we go to configure. And now we're going to add another stage. And this stage is for building the image. Where do I add the next stage? I come here, adjust stage. I have to have it active. So that if I enter, I should see another curly bracket forming other. Now we move, of course, these are just nothing. This is a shell command. This is how you run the bash command. And here, what I want us to do is to come and put this one. It's an sh command. You enter, you get the other one. We're going to build. Here we are building. I want you to understand exactly what this command is doing. So I'm going to explain to you what it does. So we are running a shell command or a bash command called docker build -t stand for tag. And this is the name of the tag. Good. So if we run this, we are going to be able to build the image. Let's see. Apply, save. All right. So let's build. All right. Something is happening. All right, so these are all the logs. They are being displayed in the Jenkins. As you can see, the process is very fast. This is how you automate the entire process, just building successfully. So it has been able to successfully build, and now it has been able to tag, as you can see. So the image has been built. You can see this is the Docker file. Remember, Docker file is nothing but it's a configuration file that contains all the instruction on how to build your image application. So these are all the things. As you can see, the image has been built, and now we have the image. Good. Let's see how the things are going. Let's return to dashboard. Let's click on our pipeline, and now we continue to add more stages. So we had git cloning, Maven clean build Docker image. Now what do? Yes, we have built an image. It's just like how we used to do manually, but this time we are going to tag the image. Tagging the image can be brutal for some people. But before we tag the image, let's have some fun. And the fun is let's restore the images that are in our terminal. To do that, we're going to copy this. Again, this is just another stage. Is it a must you have this stage? It's not a must. I just want to have a little bit of fun. So now, again, the question is, where do I add the next stage? It's there. Make sure everything is well aligned. So now we put this one and we enter. Good. I was expecting another curly bracket to open here. Now we move to the next. Come back here. You can use Docker image list, or you can use the Docker images. I think you should use the one that is often very common, and this is Docker images because it's very common. It's used to check all the images that are running in your terminal. So we apply, save, let's have fun, build. Again, it's going to happen very fast. You see, it's just moving. From XML, keep going, it's compiling. This is the whole process. It's going to build .jar. Remember yesterday, we saw that there are different kind of binaries, or what we call the source code binary. Now, our case is .jar. It can be anything, but our case is .jar. Yes, we have all these images. We have OpenJDK, we have Jenkins. We have, of course, what we built. Successful. So we go back. Dashboard. Again, we click on the pipeline. And now we have 4 stages. And we continue to build slow by slow. Now we move to the next one. Now we are going to tag the image. This is a very crucial stage. We come back here. So now, again, configure. Come down here. We're going to come here, enter. Again, we have to make sure, I'm going to increase this. We have to make sure that if I enter, I can see another curly bracket. So it means it's not being detected. So I have to type it manually. And now I enter, is detected. Now we are tagging. Tagging can be tricky for some people, but I'm going to take you through the whole process of tagging this. It's going to be easy. It's not difficult, but you have to know how to tag. How do you tag successfully? One, Docker tag the name of the image that we built. We saw that. Then after that, you need to tag it using your Docker Hub account. Docker Hub account. So the question is, where is my Docker Hub account? Well, I'm going to show you where it is. Docker Hub, you just need to say Docker Hub. And then, of course, you click on it. This is your Docker Hub account. If you don't have it, go ahead and sign up. You can do that. But for my case, I do have it. So it's just a matter of me signing in. I'm not a robot. Well, I do have some tests to do here. I think they want me to check whether I know what a bicycle is. And I do. So let's see. Well, it seems like I did not get it. Okay. I hope now I'm okay. Good. So now you can just go ahead and sign in. Easy peasy. This is my username, and then I can sign in. This is my password. If I want to show you, I can show you, but I'm not. So we continue. And this is my Docker Hub. So now the account is here. So you come here, you are tagging with your account. / you can make your repository if you want. Like you can always come back here and you can create a repository if you want. So, and that is going to be, let me say, I want to create a repository called Nginx latest. All right, so I'm going to create it. You see how it will look like? So that's the same way I did. So I just copied that one and I bring it here. But again, you have to remember, you must use semicolon, not semicolon, but colon. And again, you repeat the name of the image here. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. You're going to have issues. So this is what exactly we did. So let's apply, let's save it, and let's build. We are just having fun. Okay, we go to console output. This time it's gonna build even faster. You see, it's tagging, finish, okay? So you can see that it has been tagged. So if I was to rerun the command, I'm going to see that this has been tagged and we have a new image with this tagging. So now tagging is successful. Let's return back to the dashboard. We come back here. You can see how it will look like now. Our stages continue to increase in numbers. Now, what I can do here is go back to configure, and I can come back here, and what I'm going to do, I'll increase the size a little bit. I'm going to run sh command, and I'll repeat the same command, docker images. All right, so let's have fun. Let's see what will happen. This time, build now. All right, so it's building. Again, let's see. I believe it's done. All right. Now you can see we have this one here. This is what was tagged, as you can see. We can have a tag. We can also use the latest. Actually, to tag is fine. But it's however you want it, but you must repeat that if you are tagging. It must be repeated again. But again, you have to make sure that you are tagging exactly the name you have. Now we go to the next stage. The next stage is, if we have been able to build, tag, we have been able to build, we have been able to tag. Now what we need is to be able to log into Docker Hub so that we can prepare to push the image. Here is gonna get a little bit tricky, but I'm going to show you, just need to follow me. So now to do that again, we return to configure. We come back here, our pipeline is getting bigger. Now we have our next stage, and this stage, we're going to enter, and we are going to go here. Stage is Docker, we are logging in. I'm not gonna use this, I'm going to just come here and I'll show you exactly how to generate this, because most of these you're not supposed to memorize. I'm gonna make it active, then I run it. All right, so here we have to be careful. Now, we are going to come to pipeline syntax. And in the pipeline syntax, I want you to pay a lot of attention here. We are going to come here and check something that say with environmental variable, with. So you go to W, with. We have two of them. We have with credential, we have with environment. Let's go back to my pipeline for confirmation. With credential. All right, so we come back here. With credential is what we are looking for. With credential. Well, fine. Here we are. Good. So now we need to have a binding here. To add a binding is gonna be a text, because it's a password. It's text is a password. We are not gonna use a file, it's just a text. Now, here we need to create a variable. We can create any variable, but sometimes, and this is what you are going to see here, this is our variable, this is our ID, and this is our variable. If you use a variable like this, it's too often people will know it's a password. So it's always advisable you don't use a variable like password. Easy to know, I mean, everybody knows this. Maybe we can use something else. Instead of password, we can say docker underscore hub underscore credential maybe we can say secret is fine, doesn't matter. So now credential, here is where we need to add credentials. And because it's a text, it's just a password. So to do this, follow me carefully. You are going to come to add Jenkins. Then you are going to come here. Remember, we are not using username with password. We are using a secret text. Good. Now from here, we need to come and put a text. You have to remember your Docker Hub password. I don't remember, but I can do something. I just need to come to my 3 dots. I go to settings. I go to autofill password. I come to Google password. And in this case, all I need is to say Docker Hub. Docker, I guess it's docker.com. Fingers as usual, and here we are. So I'm not going to show you again. I'm just going to copy that and I'll come and paste it here so you'll know what it is. Then I can use this one, Docker Hub password. Description can be anything. Docker Hub credentials. Add. Now, if I come here, I can easily add it. You see, it's here. Now, nothing else to do. You just need to generate. And here where it came from, you see it? So now you're going to copy as it is. But I'm going to first of all copy the first one. So we come back to the pipeline. And here we are. We enter and we paste that one. Don't forget, it has its own curly brackets, so I enter. It should be able to be active. So I'm going to come here and I'll put it again. Yes, it should generate another one. This curly bracket, they must always be balanced. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. 2 open, 2 closing. So now we come here and then we come back here. And all we need is to go back to our pipeline and we are going to run the sh command, the same command you know called docker login. Docker login. In this case, I will explain exactly what is happening. And this is not the best way to do it. Seem to have an issue here, but we'll fix it. So now here, I just want you to understand what is happening. So we are using Docker login. We have a -u for username, and then we have -p for the password. In this case, we are referencing a variable, and we are using the $sign to reference to this variable name. That's all we need to do. So we apply. We need to see where the issue is. I'm trying to see exactly where it is. So we have that is fine. We have with credential. I'm going to pull it back, okay. And then, of course, there is something here. So there was something that was missing because you see this one, we have a parenthesis and then we have a square bracket. And here, of course, we need to have the same. And then here again, we are just doing Docker login. -u is for the username. The username is this. Then we have -p is for password. Then we are using the $sign to reference to the variable name. Now, I think we are good. We just apply. We save. And we want to make sure that we can log into Docker Hub before we can be able to push this image application. So let's build. Console output. Successful. There's something I'm missing here. Oh, it's already built. All right, let's build it again. Going to build 9. We need to see what is happening for sure. And we continue. You see exactly it's building the jar and all that, copy all that, build an image. is able to log in. So now Docker login, password, whatever. You can always work something here because there is a better way, of course, to put your credentials. There is always a more secure way, of course, to pass the credential, especially when you are passing them through the standard terminal. So, but that's okay. We have been able to successfully log in, and now from here we can move in to the last process, which is none other but pushing the image. Now to do that, we're going to go to our last stage here, and our last stage is none other but pushing the image. And to be able to push the image, it's going to be easy. We don't need this anymore. We need to come back here. We need to come to the dashboard. We need to click on here. We need to configure this. And we need to come here. This, of course, we're going to put the stage. And that one here, because I want it to be active, we're good to go. And now to be able to push is very easy. Just need to come here. Of course, Docker push. You are pushing with the name that you tagged with. And we already saw that this name. So exactly how you tag this. You come back here, and then you just paste here. And this should be the final stage. Docker image push to the staging area of production. That's exactly what it is. We are just pushing it to the staging area of production. The staging area of production is not a room, it's not a table, or it's not somewhere that is out there, or it's like something we are pushing over. It's none other than just a repository, a Docker Hub, or an image repository that is owned by the production team. And there, of course, there is more to do, because you just can't push an image application to the pre-production without documentation. So you have to prepare a lot of documentation, and this is where words like release engineer, you hear some words like, hey, are you familiar with the release process of the application? This is what we are talking about. So you can either release it to the pre-production, or you can also release it to the customers. But in this case, we are just releasing this to the staging area of production. So of course, there are notes you have to put together, documentation, like exactly the kind of environment this image application is supposed to be running in. You have to put some more information in the port we need to open, in the special environment we need, in the variables. All those are part of documentation. But for our case, we are not going to put any documentation. I just want you to understand exactly how to be able to push this image application into the pre-production area. In the pre-production, the other things that will happen. If you are going to follow my teaching, or you are going to follow my tutorial, you are going to realize that at some point we are going to take this same image, and we are going now to deploy this image into the Kubernetes cluster. So there's a lot you have to, of course, to understand the entire pipeline. But for this pipeline, we are stopping at the pre-production. And that is after we have been successfully been able to build the image application and push it over to the pre-production. Now, let's do it. Apply, save, and this should be the final stage. Let's build 10, or we can just enjoy the dashboard and just see it build from here. We haven't seen it from here. So it's moving from each stage. You can see now Docker image push to the staging area of production. It's trying to push. It's just trying to push, and it's done. So this is entire, this is exactly what you're supposed to follow. This is how you can implement or automate the entire process of SDLC. But of course, there is more than this. Some companies are going to be using a whole different CI/CD pipeline. But this is a good foundation you can use, of course, to continue and study more about the CI/CD pipeline. It's not difficult, as you have seen. We have been able to prepare the Jenkins pipeline script and all that, and we have been able to do everything from the cloning to Maven clean build to building of image. Of course, if I had SonarQube, of course, that stage for SonarQube would have been added here. There is another stage that is missing, and that is for JFrog. And that JFrog is none other but Artifactory. So after building the artifact, we need, of course, a way to manage the artifact. And the best way, of course, is to deploy this artifact into Artifactory. That is a video that is coming, and it is going to help you exactly to know and also to see exactly how you can manage and also deploy the artifacts that are built by Maven into Artifactory of your choice. But the one we are going to use here is actually the JFrog. So that brings us to the end. This is exactly the entire CI/CD pipeline. Of course, again, just to recap on what we have done, we started with the planning stage. We were planning for what kind of pipeline we are going to use here. Then at that point, we had developers, the dev environment. Of course, the work is to prepare the code for the features that we need for the software. Then we went, of course, that code is going to be put in a GitHub repository. And the GitHub repository, this is a GitHub repository that contains the quality code that is running the software. We have to clone this so that it can come to Jenkins. Jenkins is actually the one that controls the whole show. To be able to clone, we need a software called Git. And that Git here is just the one that is being integrated with Jenkins so that it can clone. After cloning, we need to build. We saw the build process. The build process, in our case, we are using Maven. Maven was great in the build automation process, but again, it can work alone. We also need to have JDK installed in our terminal. And we saw that after installing the Maven, they also kind of recommend for you the kind of JDK you need to have. Next, we have SonarQube for static analysis of the code that we have written. SonarQube is a machine, so it must be passed to what we call the binary. It's not going to work with the source code. After testing, we can either store this artifact at this point. We can store it in the JFrog. So that is another tool that you need to add in your pipeline, which I'm going to do in the next tool. So, and this is just to manage the artifactory. The artifacts is an artifactory. We saw that in our case, we are producing .jar. So these .jar are going to be stored. They are going to be stored in the artifactory of your choice. Can be Nexus, can be JFrog, but JFrog is what we are going to use. Before, of course, I forget, don't forget something we call POM XML, which is a configuration, the configuration file that is going to be running the project. It will contain all the dependencies that need to be downloaded from the central repository of Maven. So we saw that. Now, if we are not going to, here we are storing the JFrog, so that because we are building a lot, we need to have a way to manage these artifacts. And this is why we have another repository for artifacts, and that is JFrog. From here, we know that our production is running through containers, so we need to build image application. To do that, we integrated our Jenkins with Docker. With Docker, then after that, after building, after tagging, after logging in, and then we were able to push, and we sent this to the pre-production. The pre-production area of what we call the staging area of production is nothing but just an image repository where the people in the production can just pull this image, run it as a container, and see exactly how it works. Again, I say that in here, you have to prepare for the release documentation. Again, that's another video I'll cover. But that is exactly how our pipeline looks like. There are more tools you can add. Yes, you can add Ansible if you're going to be managing the servers or managing the Jenkins server, especially with configuration, especially with installation. You can use Ansible. That is another tool you can add here. So that's exactly what you need to have in mind. But again, don't limit yourself to this pipeline. There are way different type of pipeline that companies are using, but this is a very good foundation for you. And we can say we are done with this, and this is the end of this video. They are all going to be put together, so you should have access to all of them. And all I can say is thank you.